Good evening everybody, and a very warm welcome to episode 3 of Murder at Bedtime. The waffle-free 10 to 15 minute, no frills, no my ugly face bedtime murder vlog. And that said, let's crack on. It was a pleasant Saturday morning for Stephen Hogarth, a single 32-year-old man who had just had his 3-year-old son Callum dropped off by his estranged wife Lynn to spend the weekend together. The pair were playing together in the living room. Callum loved staying at his dad's, when at approximately 8:30 a.m, Stephen heard the morning post being delivered. He walked out into the hallway, opened the front door and took the mail from the postman. He then walked into the kitchen, sat down at the table and, seeing there was a padded parcel, proceeded to open it. Suddenly, there was a flash and a large explosion. The explosion, which blew off Stephen's hands, and the glass shards from the miniature spirit bottles in the package piercing his chest and causing massive injuries, killing him instantly. 3-year-old Callum wandered out of the living room into the kitchen and sat down next to his daddy, presumably just in shock. No one can even imagine what Callum saw or felt, or the damage it may have done to him in the long term mentally. But he sat with his dad for the next 2 hours. Totally horrendous. At just after 10 a.m, Stephen's dad rang his son to see where they were, as they were supposed to be visiting him. Callum answered the phone and told his granddad, "Dad is dead." He immediately informed Stephen's sister, who took her other sister and her husband round to Stephen's address, where they found the truly horrendous sight of their terribly mutilated brother and the 3-year-old nephew sat with him. The police were called immediately and Callum was taken out of the house. Of course, the police at first thought it was a gas explosion, but after 2 days' checks by Transco engineers and the finding of charred paper and wrapping, it was deemed to be something much more sinister. But a parcel bomb in Louth, Lincolnshire, a sleepy backwater market town? Really? Once it had been determined Stephen had been killed by a bomb, Detective Chief Superintendent Chris Cook of Lincolnshire Police said, "Whoever did this is callous, calculating and irresponsible. This package has been through so many hands, postal workers, other people's, and the danger it put Callum in. It is just luck there aren't more casualties." So they started looking for people who had a grudge against Stephen Hogarth. They began firstly by looking at ex-lovers of his girlfriend Zoe Richardson, but this drew a complete blank. So they started chatting with neighbours. They said Stephen had moved in about 6 weeks ago, very hurriedly, and had immediately taped up the letterbox with thick industrial tape, which they found very strange. Everybody who was close to Stephen described him as happy, jovial, caring and generous. His boss said he was a hard-working, loyal, conscientious guy, always happy, always smiling. But as others in the town mainly said he wasn't in line for a sainthood, and this led to inquiries being made into petty crime and drugs in Louth and in the Grimsby and Scunthorpe areas. This too drew a blank. But then, looking into Stephen's not so distant past, they suddenly find out that this happy, jovial, caring, generous man had another side. Nearly exactly 2 years before, at a firm's Christmas party, Stephen Hogarth had walked up to co-worker David Broddle in the men's toilets and said, "What's up, Space Cadet?" before punching him 6 times in the head completely unprovoked. Hogarth was fired from his job, convicted of assault, and ordered to do 40 hours community service. Now the police decided that they should go and interview David Broddle. So they did. And after his interview, the police said he is no longer a person of interest to us. So the search went on. 8 days after the murder, on the 19th of December 1999, a dog walker walking at a beauty spot called Monsell Head near Bakewell in Derbyshire discovered a car with a hosepipe leading in through the window from the exhaust. Inside were the dead bodies of a man and a woman. When the police arrived on the scene, they were identified as David Broddle and his girlfriend Lorraine Richardson. Also inside were 2 notes. Now the full details in these notes have never been revealed, but Broddle does confess and says he only meant to scare Stephen. "I can't live with the guilt," he said. Police straight away visited Broddle's address in Horncastle and evacuated the street. 8 families were moved out of their homes until bomb disposal units had given the all clear. His work colleagues said he was a very quiet man. He didn't mix and didn't want to speak to anyone, and he couldn't get out quick enough when his shift ended at the plastics factory where they worked. And neighbours said he really didn't want to talk to you, and if you did stop him to chat, he couldn't wait to get away. He had a computer in his living room and he was up all hours on it. It was found that he had assessed 10 bomb making sites online, apparently easy to find by anyone. A sad tale, but how come the police stated Broddle was not a person of interest so early? And why did Lorraine Richardson die along with Broddle? Was she in some part responsible too? I apologise that I couldn't find much on Lorraine. I couldn't even find her age. I find that very sad. But some interesting questions I found arose from this case that you may want to ask yourself as too. Number 1, why did Stephen Hogarth move house hurriedly and tape up his letterbox? Was he involved in petty crime? Had he been forwarded some sort of letter about receiving a bomb? 2, why did David Broddle wait 2 years? And how did he think a bomb that exploded on opening would just scare Hogarth? It blew off his hands and was packed with glass miniature spirit glasses that made such a mess of his insides. I just can't understand how he thought that this would just scare him. And as for Lorraine Richardson's involvement in the murder, why did she decide to die too? What sort of involvement did she have in the case? We presumably will never know. All in all, a very sad case that in a very, very sleepy town in Lincolnshire is very unusual. I would like to say that I rang a couple of people I know who actually live in Louth and have lived there all their lives. And when I asked them about the Louth letterbomb tragedy, they absolutely had no idea what I was talking about, which I thought was amazing. So much so that they've asked me to forward this to them so that they can tell people in the area because they've never heard of it. Now, I would have thought anybody that had anything like this happen in their town, it would have been all over the papers and they would have known about it. But apparently not. But anyway, that is the end of this week's Murder at Bedtime. Next week, a fortnight's time, we will be back in the Aylesbury area with a very interesting case which I've been researching, which I hope you'll enjoy, and I hope you really enjoyed tonight's. Please give me your feedback as usual. I always enjoy it, and take care, sleep well, see you soon. Good night.